When I was about 18, my dad, sister, and me actually ran a Star Wars blog called Clone Corridor on the internet. I know, another secret identity of mine revealed out on YouTube. We mostly stopped once The Rise of Skywalker came out because we walked out of the cinema not really knowing what to say about the movie, and in that moment decided that if we had nothing good to say, we better just not say anything at all. But while the blog was still going, I actually did a few deep dives on specific characters like Asajj Ventress and also Darth Maul. If you're interested in what I wrote back then, keeping in mind that I was young and unresearched and uneducated, I'll leave the link in the description below. I decided to do it on Darth Maul because I was absolutely obsessed with the Clone Wars series at the time. I also managed to meet Ray Park at Star Wars Celebration, and so it just felt like a beautiful culmination of things, and hence into the deep dive lore I went. So imagine my excitement when I found out that we're gonna get a whole new Darth Maul series coming to our screens this year on Disney+. More Shadow Lord is set to come out this year with Sam Witwer reprising his role vocally. I think he did the voice for Darth Maul in Clone Wars, I think also in Rebels, and maybe some other Star Wars media around that as well. The animation is said to be very similar to that of the Clone Wars, and while that took me a minute to get used to, and I know there's a bit of a split in the audiences of whether you like it or not, I grew to really love it, so I'm really excited for that. The show is set to be set about a year after the events of the Clone Wars, so after Ahsoka Tano sets him free at the end, with Darth Maul rebuilding his Crimson Dawn criminal syndicate and taking on an apprentice. This is a Twi'lek, and it's rumored to be Darth Talon, which initially confused me based on her storyline, because she exists in the extended universe, which mostly takes place after Return of the Jedi, and I was like, Darth Maul will be so old during that time. However, there's two things to note here. The first being George Lucas' initial intentions for the sequels, which was for Darth Maul to be the main antagonist with an apprentice. Dave Filoni is known to kind of take some of these ideas and then plop them into something else, so that's potentially what's happening here. The second thing to note is that Maul's a Dathomirian Zabrak, and they're known to live for a really long time. In Star Wars lore, they have a natural lifespan of, I think, up to 180 years, and I think Maul was born 54 years before the Battle of Yavin. So that would make him about 55 to 60 years during the original trilogy, and would make him about 85 to 90 in the sequels, which is only really middle-aged for a Zabrak. So while we're preparing for the new show, I thought, why not bring in everyone like me who absolutely loves Darth Maul, but maybe didn't have the time to sit through the entire Clone Wars and Rebels and all of the extended lore, and bring you up to date. Also, I just quickly want to note, someone recently commented on my Anakin video, which if you haven't seen it yet, you totally should, that there's a bit of lore that I missed out in it, and I just want to say that I'm going to do my absolute best to cover everything that I could find and that I know about Darth Maul, but inevitably there are going to be battles, communications, lore missed out in this video. So I'd really encourage you to use the comments to talk about this additional lore as well that I'm maybe not hitting on, and have a wider conversation about all the other things that make Darth Maul who he is. Now, you might expect me to start at the Phantom Menace, but to really understand who Darth Maul is, we have to go way further back to his origins. And this, of course, takes us to Dathomir, which is a swamp-covered, very dark planet situated in the Outer Rim. The planet is known for its strong, dark side presence, its red light, and of course its native, force-wielding witch clans, also known as the Night Sisters, who practice powerful magic and kept male warriors called the Night Brothers. Before we go any further, let's have a little bit of lore on the Witches of Dathomir, because it's quite important to then understand Darth Maul's story. The Jedi Order actually banished a rogue Jedi named Aliyah, or Aliyah, I don't know the exact pronunciation, and that really set into motion the foundations of the Witches of Dathomir. As the years passed, Aliyah taught the natives the ways of the Force. She would also be remembered as the one who transformed the ways of the Dathomir society, which would then make space for the reign of the Night Sisters, and of course the inbreeding of Zabraks and humans, which then create the Night Brothers. This is really important to know because Darth Sidious actually visits Dathomir about 54 years before the Battle of Yavin. This is where he encounters Darth Maul and senses his strong Force presence and takes him with him. There are a few different ways that this is often interpreted depending on what you read or watch. Some say that Darth Maul was kidnapped from the Night Sisters. Some say that Mother Talzin, his mother, gave him to Darth Sidious. Others say that Mother Talzin was actually set to become Darth Sidious' apprentice, but he sensed the strong Force in Darth Maul and took him instead. Either way, it was not an easy time for Maul. He's taken by Sidious, which also breaks the rule of two in the Sith. The book Darth Maul Shadowhunter, which was released in 2001, written by Michael Reeves, goes into the training that Darth Maul takes under Sidious. By the way, they recently released an entire audiobook of this, and if you want, I found the entirety of it on YouTube, so feel free to dive into that as well. It's said that Maul was subjected to extreme rigorous training on a variety of planets, including Mustafar, Megiddo, and Orsus. He was hunted by assassin droids for months, forced to starve, and he had to battle stronger and more dangerous creatures with his bare hands. On top of that, Darth Sidious made him inhale the ashes of slain Sith by the Jedi. crazy thing to do, through which Darth Maul felt their pain and their suffering, which only fueled his anger towards the Jedi. In a key part of the book, it's also said that for his final test, he's sent to the planet Hippori, and there he's said to be hunted by droids for I think a month without food or rest. And then the kicker is that after he survives, Sidious goes, well, actually I've also been training another apprentice on the side, pushing Maul to an absolute breaking point and a fit of rage. Of course, we also all want to know where he got his cool tattoos from. The distinctive Sith markings that cover his entire body were actually applied by Darth Sidious himself, serving as a permanent mark of his absolute devotion to the dark side. Maul was trained in numerous forbidden martial arts, and I'm going to read them out because I'm absolutely going to butcher the pronunciation of these. So he was said to be trained in, again I apologize, Teras Kasi, Juyo, Jarkai, and in addition to that, he was also trained in Mechu Deru, which is a dark side ability to control and manipulate machinery. This is also how he was able to construct his own probe droids, which are known as the Dark Eye probes, and I think these are the ones we see in the Phantom Menace. They assist him in his missions, and so it becomes clearer and clearer that Maul is more of an assassin than an actual heir in the Sith legacy. The last thing to mention before the Phantom Menace is also that Maul became more and more impatient. In the Marvel comic Darth Maul, which came out in 2017, he defies Sidious' orders. He wants to hunt down a Jedi Padawan called Eldra Kaitis just to see whether he's got it in him to kill a Jedi, and of course he does. This just makes him more ruthless and shows how lethal Darth Maul actually is. And this brings us all the way to Phantom Menace. I won't dwell here too long because we've probably all seen the movie, but a few things that are important to note here. We see Maul again being used by Sidious more as an assassin, which is quite interesting because he does introduce him as his apprentice. Maul tracks Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan in an attempt to eliminate Padme. He duels them both and eventually gets the upper hand and kills Qui-Gon Jinn, and in a fit of rage, Obi-Wan finds the strength and then actually defeats Darth Maul. So the last we see of Darth Maul is him tumbling down the shaft, split in half, and the audience gasped. What do you mean the coolest Sith Lord we've seen currently is immediately written out of the story? Fans were outraged and we wanted them to bring him back, and so they did. Now I'm not insinuating that they just brought Maul back in the Clone Wars because of fan service, not at all, but I'm really happy that they did. I know I brushed through the events of the Phantom Menace, but there's one thing to really highlight here because it sets everything into motion, and that's the meeting of Maul and Obi-Wan Kenobi. As I said, the last we see is him falling down the shaft, Obi-Wan Kenobi thinking that he's defeated Maul and killed him. This plagues Maul for years to come and sets up his storyline nicely for the entirety of Clone Wars and Rebels. After being cut in half, Maul survived through shattered force will and just absolute hatred. He spends 12 years on the planet Lotho Minor, losing his mind. He merges his body with a 6-legged mechanical spider-like thing and just completely loses it. We meet Maul again when he's found by his brother Savage Opress, so we need to take a closer look at who that is. Savage Opress was initially a tribal leader on Dathomir, but was chosen by Asajj Ventress to undergo a ritual by the Night Sisters. Mother Talzin performs the ritual and turns him into a very powerful weapon. He transforms into this massive yellow-skinned Zabrak with very strong force-wielding powers, which of course makes him a formidable warrior, and so he does. He goes on to serve Count Dooku as an assassin, but eventually is actually betrayed by both Dooku and Asajj Ventress and returns to Dathomir. Here Mother Talzin reveals the big secret. His long-lost brother Darth Maul is still alive somewhere, and she gives him a talisman which will glow stronger the closer he is to him, and so this sets into motion his adventure of finding his brother. They find each other and become both a loyal brotherhood, but also a rogue Sith-like presence. As we said though, Maul has completely lost his mind, and he's muttering words like mercy and Kenobi and revenge.
I am fear. Always remember I am a hunter. Always remember I am filth. Always remember I am nothing.
Savage, looking at this, decides to bring Maul back to Dathomir and to Mother Talzin. Here Mother Talzin uses magic to purge the madness from his mind. Don't we all wish we had powers like that during one of our Mentee-Bees? She uses the wreckage of Separatist droids to forge new legs for Darth Maul, which finally allow him to stand tall like a Sith again. It's the rebirth of an assassin, but this time with a clear mind and a clear vision. Revenge. Maul has had years to ponder his fate, and the one conclusion he's come to is that Obi-Wan Kenobi is to blame for all of it. It's all his fault, and Maul is ready to make him suffer for it, slowly. He doesn't want to just kill Obi-Wan, he wants him to suffer and completely disassemble his sense of self. And so, after a decade, Maul lures Obi-Wan Kenobi to the planet Raydonia, where he slaughters an entire innocent village and broadcasts it to the entire Jedi Temple. This all takes place in Clone Wars Season 4, Episode 22, titled Revenge. Maul and his brother actually manage managed to capture Obi-Wan and are planning to torture the absolute shits out of him. However, Obi-Wan Kenobi finds an unlikely friend in Asajj Ventress and she actually helps him escape. We get a really cool duel between all four of them. Asajj Ventress is so cool. I think I'm just gonna make an entire video just about her. And so Obi-Wan Kenobi is able to leave. The next time the two meet is when Obi-Wan Kenobi and Jedi Master Adi Gallia track the brothers to the planet Florum, which takes place in the Clone Wars Season 5 Episode 1 Revival. During the fight, Savage Opress kills Adi Gallia, leaving Obi-Wan to fight both brothers alone in a narrow tunnel. Obi manages to sever Savage's arm and damage Maul's cybernetic leg, forcing the brothers to flee. And so now we enter a new era of Darth Maul, the political Mandalorian takeover arc. Maul's coming to realize that just him and his brother can't take down Obi-Wan Kenobi on their own. They need more. They need an army, they need a strategy. And so Maul allies with and saves the terrorist group Death Watch from the vacuum of space. He uses their leader Pre Vizsla to unite the criminal world, so we've got multiple clans going, the Black Sun, the Pikes and the Hutts. And so together they plan to save Mandalore from staged attacks and make themselves the heroes in the story. Maul stages attacks on Sundari with his allies in the Death Watch. He then swoops in to save the city, making the pacifist Duchess Satine look weak, and of course making Pre Vizsla look like the hero. Once in power though, Vizsla betrays Maul and Savage Opress and chucks them into prison. Of course they don't last very long in the prison and manage to escape, and Maul challenges Pre Vizsla to a duel. Now here's some lore you need to know about Mandalore and specifically the lore behind the Darksaber. According to the warrior code of the Mandalorians, if you hold the Darksaber, you are the leader. Currently Pre Vizsla has it, and so this is the reason why he's challenged to a duel by Darth Maul, and Darth Maul defeats him. I mean, he decapitates him. And so he takes the throne as the rightful ruler. Now, a character I just briefly mentioned that you might not know at all or not as well if you haven't seen the Clone Wars is Duchess Satine. She's the Duchess of Mandalore, the sister of Bo-Katan who you might know from The Mandalore, and of course, the love interest of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Maul knows this, and so he's actively captured her to try and lure Obi-Wan Kenobi to Mandalore, successfully so. Satine manages to send a message to the Jedi Council, but they actually refuse to help because Mandalore is a neutral system. Obi-Wan Kenobi is outraged, and so steals or borrows Anakin's ship Twilight and makes his way there under a disguise. The rescue attempt fails when Maul's super commandos manage to shoot down Obi-Wan's plane and take him prisoner. Captured and brought to the throne room, Obi-Wan is forced to watch Maul brag and be triumphant and just ego-filled. He's trying to provoke Obi-Wan and get him to break or join the dark side, and when he sees that he's unable to do, the ultimate punishment ensues. Maul uses the Force to pull Satine towards him and impale her on the Darksaber. Satine dies in Obi-Wan's arms. It's really sad. I cried about it. I'm pretty sure I made a tribute video about them on YouTube. I'll try and find it. And she says, "I've loved you from the moment you came to my aid all of those years ago." And of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi has absolutely lost it at this point, which is exactly what Maul wants. And so he doesn't want to kill him. He sends his guards to chuck Obi-Wan in prison and basically wants him to rot. He literally says, "Let him rot in his misery." Obi-Wan Kenobi is eventually rescued by Bo-Katan during the civil war that ensues on Mandalore. As Obi-Wan flees, the focus of the story shifts back to Maul and Savage. Their rise to power has obviously caught the attention of Darth Sidious, and I don't think he's too happy about it. A duel ensues and Darth Sidious actually kills Savage Opress and then takes Maul prisoner, effectively ending Maul's short-lived reign as King of Mandalore for the time being. Now, we actually don't see Maul again until Season 7 of the Clone Wars. But there were certain scripts that were never animated, and so instead they turned it into a 4-issue comic book called Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of everything that happens to bridge the gap between Season 5 and Season 7 of the Clone Wars. After the fight with Sidious, Maul is taken to a high-security prison called the Spire, placed on the planet Stygian Prime. What a name. Sidious doesn't want to kill Maul, he wants to use him as bait to lure Mother Talzin to the planet because he sees her as a huge threat to his power, which, if you look at her during the Clone Wars, I think she is. Maul's Mandalorian loyalists actually managed to help him escape, and so he returns to lead the Shadow Collective. What a sentence. I had to do that sentence like 10 times. Maul's Mandalorian loyalists? My god. Maul, of course, launches a massive counterattack to Sidious because all he knows to do is avenge. But this leads to some fantastic fanservice moments between Maul, Grievous, and Dooku. We see multiple duels between Maul and Grievous, and we also see him actually capturing Count Dooku. He eventually tries to convince Dooku to join him to overthrow Darth Sidious. The story culminates in a massive 4-way showdown. Maul and Mother Talzin versus Sidious, Dooku, and Grievous. has. Mother Talzin possesses Count Dooku's body in an attempt to fight Sidious. However, eventually she has to manifest in her physical form. To save Maul from Sidious lighting, she pushes him into a ship and tells him to flee. And then, of course, General Grievous kills Mother Talzin. Maul escapes, but his power base is absolutely shattered. He's lost his mother figure. Most of his criminal allies at this point abandon him, and he retreats back to Mandalore with very few loyal Mandalorians remaining. And so we've made it all the way to Season 7 of The Clone Wars, where to some viewers' surprise, Maul suddenly comes back. Of course, this is not to be mistaken with Season 5. Sometimes when you look it up, the Siege of Mandalore and the Takeover of Mandalore kind of mixed together. At this point, Maul is hiding on Mandalore and he is plagued with visions of Anakin becoming Sidious's new apprentice. And so a plan forms for him to lure Anakin to Mandalore in an attempt to kill him and basically destroy Sidious's plan and stop the rise of the Empire. Imagine if that had worked. Sad times for Anakin, but good times for the galaxy. Instead of Anakin, however, Ahsoka is sent, and so a duel ensues. In a rare moment of clarity, Maul offers to team up with Ahsoka. He tells her a galactic empire will rise. The Republic has already fallen. Ahsoka, however, refuses to believe that Anakin could fall to the dark side. And so she defeats Maul and captures him in a Mandalorian vault, basically a device designed to contain Force users. While Maul is being transported though, Order 66 ensues. As the clones turn on Ahsoka, she realizes she can't survive alone. She releases Maul to create a distraction, and Maul, without a lightsaber, uses the Force to rip metal panels off the walls of the Venator cruiser, decapitating clones and destroying the ship's hyperdrive. It's a display of pure evil, power born from desperation, often compared to the Darth Vader scene in Rogue One. While the ship crashes, Maul manages to steal a shuttle and vanishes into the vacuum of space. He's now a man without a country, without a master, or a purpose, which sets the stage for him to rebuild as the Shadow Lord. And so that's exactly where the new series should be picking up. This time the Darth is gone and he's simply Maul. He heads to the criminal underworld that he built during the war. He realizes that if he can't rule through the Force because we've got Inquisitors, we've got Darth Vader, he'll have to rule through crime. This is the era where he recruits multiple members of the Syndicate, and he's the most calculated and paranoid, knowing that at any moment the Empire could technically find him. I hope this series will also explain a little bit why he looks so powerful yet stuck in the Solo movie, which then I hope will all tie up with where we see him in Rebels. After the events of the new show that we've got coming and the Solo movie, we eventually find Maul in Rebels again. Years later, it seems that something must have gone wrong. Maul is stranded on the ancient Sith world of Malachor, living in the shadows of the Sith temple. He has lost his syndicate and his power, and this is when he meets Ezra Bridger. He tries one last time to pass on his legacy and plays this off as being kind of a fatherly, grandfatherly figure to Ezra. He doesn't attack him at all. Instead, he tries to befriend him. He introduces himself as an old master and basically a victim of the Sith. It seems almost as if he sees a reflection of himself in Ezra. Someone talented and frustrated and looking for the power to save the ones he loves. Maul tries to claim Ezra, not just as a tool, but as a brother. At the end of Season 2 in Rebels though, his true nature slips out. He blinds Kanan Jarrus, Ezra's actual teacher, in a sudden strike, hoping that by removing Ezra's teacher, Ezra is forced to join him. In Season 3, his obsession shifts. He forces Ezra to combine a Jedi holocron and a Sith holocron. This is a forbidden act that grants a glimpse of the truth, and doing so allows Maul to see twin suns. At first, he thinks he's looking at ways to destroy the Sith, but eventually he's realizing that the visions will lead him to his old nemesis, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Because Ezra and Maul's minds were linked during this, he starts to haunt Ezra's visions, and also uses the link to find Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so the story concludes where it began, with Obi-Wan Kenobi. After discovering that he's still alive, Maul tracks him all the way to Tatooine. Maul realizes very quickly though that Obi-Wan wasn't just in hiding, he was hiding someone, Luke. Maul wanders the deserts of Tatooine, again kind of losing his mind a little bit in the heat, and screaming Kenobi's name out loud. When he finally meets Old Ben, the contrast is striking. Maul is still wearing his mechanical legs, seemingly hasn't moved on from the events of the past, and carries his rage like a heavy weight. Obi-Wan Kenobi seems to be at peace, living a life of purpose. Maul of course has to mock Obi-Wan, calling him a rat in the desert, and as they ignite their lightsabers, Maul takes on the Ataru stance. This is the same stance used by Qui-Gon Jinn, and this is very important to note. It's a taunt. It's an attempt to trigger Obi-Wan's trauma. And so the fight only lasts 3 strikes. Maul tries to bash Obi-Wan with the hilt of his lightsaber, the same move he used to kill Qui-Gon Jinn. Obi-Wan, having spent 20 years meditating this moment, anticipates it, and so Obi-Wan slices through the hilt and Darth Maul's chest in one strike. As Maul collapses, Obi doesn't leave him to die in the desert alone. He catches him and holds him as a gesture for mercy for a man who never knew any. Maul asks him,
"Tell me, is it the chosen one?"
in a reference to Luke. When Obi-Wan confirms it, Maul breathes his last words.
"He will avenge us."
It's quite sad if you think about it that Maul's last words are avenge. Even in the arms of a man showing him forgiveness, Maul's unable to move on. He can't let go of his hatred for Sidious. And so he dies believing that Luke's purpose is seeking revenge, when in reality Luke's purpose really is hope, hence A New Hope. Now I very quickly glossed over the new show, but there are a few things that I'm hoping it will show or maybe address. The first being his transition from Darth to Crime Lord. At this point we've seen Darth Maul as a terrifying Sith and also as a broken hermit, but we only really saw glimpses of him as like the CEO of the Syndicate. I want to see what it's like when he's cold and calculating and see what he gets up to. Secondly, of course, the dynamic with his apprentice. I can't wait for this. Whether it's Darth Talon or not, I really want to see how they play this off. Will he be just as crazy and crude and cold as Darth Sidious was to him, or will he be more brotherly like he was with Savage Opress? The question really is, can Maul carve a different path for himself, or is he destined to repeat the cycle of the Sith? Third, I'm intrigued to see how he's going to face this new galaxy. We should be seeing Darth Vader and the Inquisitors. I don't want the show to rely on these cameos for it to have tension and to build story, but it would be cool if we saw some of it. And finally, the emotional weight of Dathomir. In the end, Darth Maul's story is the story of someone from Dathomir who was taken away from his family, forced to go through grueling training, kill lots of people, lose his mind, have crazy body changes happening to him. I don't want them to lose the roots of who Darth Maul really is. Maul is a character defined by the choices that were stolen away from him. Whether he's pure evil or just a product of his environment, he remains one of the most compelling figures in the entire saga, and I can't wait to see where the Shadow Lord fills some of these final pieces in the puzzle. Now, if you want to watch the highlights, I've created a brief overview of all the little things you can watch. I'll put it on the screen on this side. Feel free to have a look. Of course, you don't have to, and I hope this video has caught you up to date with everything, but if you want to see it for yourself, these are some great points to start off with. And that brings it all to a close. What do you think? As you heard, I touched on Asajj Ventress. I'm so down to do an entire video just about her. I absolutely love her. So if you'd like to see me do that, let me know and I'm happy to do a deep dive. Until then, I'll see you in the next dimension.